welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today is a very weird impromptu March wrap-up part 1. Sydney has kicked out her naps, so I usually don't count on them as times that I can film anymore, but she just happened to pass out, and Sawyer is sleeping right in front of me, and I was like, wait a minute, she's actually gonna nap? I could have filmed, but then I was like, you know what, it's going to be too much to get Sawyer upstairs and try to figure things out. So I just figured I would do a random impromptu wrap up for you from my couch. I actually already had a bunch of the books downstairs with me because of the fact that I just took a bunch of Instagram photos. So I don't have all of the books. I think there's 1 or 2 that are upstairs, but the rest of them I think are down here. So we're just going to wing it and just go with it because I figured video is better than no video. Especially because I missed my Sunday video. I apologize. My mental health kind of took a big, huge flop this weekend. So when I was about to possibly film, my mindset just wasn't there. I'm sure you've seen me through the past few months. If you've been following me for a while, my emotions have been up and down and all around. With a lot of things that have been going on, not in my inside family, so not my kids, not my husband, but outside sources. So it's been a trying few months, and and I've been doing really well, and then I just kind of hit a little dive this weekend. So I'm sorry that there was no video Sunday, but hopefully we can get back to being a little bit more consistent. So the very first book I wanted to talk about was a book that I mentioned in my last wrap-up, which was Dava Shastri's Last Day. I told you that I was going to start it and this is going to be great, and then I ended up DNFing it after 30 pages. It was just that I wasn't connecting with it. I don't know if it felt very over wordy, and I brought it back to the library. I figured I'm not going to try to waste my time on it and sent it back. And then I finished On Gin Lane, which comes out in May. I think it comes out May 31st. This is a historical fiction novel where we are following a woman who recently has gotten engaged, and her fiance takes her on this surprise trip to the Southamptons and surprises her with a hotel and is hey, I bought this hotel and I built this hotel for you. We're now going to live here during our summers. And she kind of doesn't like the idea of that because she grew up in the plaza and she's got kind of bad memories about living in a hotel, but she decides to go along with it anyways. And then something tragic happens, and it kind of sets her summer that seemed like it was going to be this life of luxury of beaches and parties and celebrities, and now it doesn't seem like it's going to be like that. So it's really a journey about her trying to find herself and her trying to figure out what her life is going to look like, because she doesn't necessarily fit the norms of what a woman is supposed to be in the 1950s. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It is definitely a character-driven story, which is totally usually not my thing. I don't really like character stories. I usually like stories that have plot and things that make them move, and this one definitely was a slower-paced book. So if you're looking for a slow-paced character development type of story, this one will definitely be for you. There's a little bit of a mystery involved. It's not the biggest thing, but it is kind of tied throughout, and it kind of gives it a little bit of something to keep it moving, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. I highly recommend you check this one out. Then, like I said, I've been trying to go after my Netgalley books in one of my previous videos, and I was like, you know what, I just read a release for this year. Let's go back and read a release that I was supposed to read years ago, and I finally picked up The Girls' Weekend, and now I know why I've been avoiding this book. I gave this book 2 stars, and that's being generous. This is about these girls who are friends in college, and it's now 10 years later, or so. It's a big amount of years later, and one of the girls is pregnant, and so the other woman is like, hey, come stay at my house, we'll have a reunion, we'll celebrate her pregnancy, and we'll do this. And while they're there, one of the women goes missing, and of course they all can't remember what happened that night, so then they don't know where she is she dead, is she missing, what's going on. This was bad. This was really bad, and I couldn't get into it. I was able to read it, but at the end of the day, the story just talked in circles, and it would be super repetitive. It spent 2 or like 3 or 4 pages being like, should we call the cops? I don't know. Should we call the cops? We should call the cops. No, we shouldn't call the cops. We should call the cops. Like, just make up your mind. It just felt very problematic, and it kept just like circling things, and we were getting like points where like you were getting the moments of like 4 pages of like, should we call the cops? But like moments that you felt like as a reader you should be seeing, you weren't seeing. Like it would be like all of a sudden it would just like flip to the next day, or like flip to hours later, and it just felt disjointed. And then the ending just felt like it was completely unrelated to this girls' weekend. Like it had nothing to do with the girls being there for the weekend, and it just, that kind of like irked me, because it's called Girls' Weekend. It should be about the girls' weekend, but whatever. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It was awful. I don't recommend it. Now I know why I was avoiding it. Now I know why everybody else was telling me not to read it. Don't read it. Then I read Only You by Melanie Harlow. I do own this book. It is upstairs. I bought this book years ago on a recommendation for indie authors, and I think that this one is suffering from like, it's an older romance. Not that it's an older romance, but I feel like Melanie Harlow, not that I've read her other stuff, but I just feel like she's probably come so much further than she did with this original book that I read. This one is following a woman and this guy and their neighbors. One is a like wedding planner, and the other guy is a divorce attorney. And so she is very much like, she tries to find the love of her life, but she can't find him. And then the other guy, the guy is like one night stand city, because he doesn't make commitments, because he knows it all ends in divorce. And they kind of have an interesting dynamic where he is like always saving her, and then one day she's over at his house, like his apartment, watching James Bond, and all of a sudden they hear something at the door, and somebody left a baby at his door being like, hey, surprise, you're the father. And she decides she's going to help him figure out how to navigate this situation. I didn't love this because I just felt like it really didn't portray. I don't know if it's because not that I'm a new parent, but like I have a newborn right now, and I've done the newborn thing already, and I just felt like if I was a guy and somebody dropped a baby on my doorstep, there is no way I would suddenly, and I'm being sleep deprived according to everything that's been happening, that the baby cries all the time and that I'm sleep deprived. There's no way I would suddenly be like, you know what, my neighbor's real hot, and start sleeping with my neighbor. Like, that would not happen. And the amount of times that they would like have sex and then they would be like, oh, I'm so loud, I can't believe I didn't wake the baby. Like, no. It just, no. And I felt like it kept trying to like have this bigger story than it ultimately did. Like it kept like trying to start this thing about like he's got an issue with his mom, and like it just tried to cover too many things, but nothing well. So unfortunately I gave it 3 stars. It just didn't do it for me. I think I would try Melanie Harlow again in the future. Just one of her like newer stuff, and not that one. And then I read The Mother Next Door, which is another book that I do own. It's upstairs. This is by Tara Laskowski. This is my second book by her. I read One Night Gone, I think it was called. Maybe that's not what it's called. I don't remember. But I read it last year in December, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I listened to it on audio. I gave that one 5 stars. And when I heard she had another book, I decided to pick it up. I will say that I highly recommend you pick this up around Halloween and not now, because it was about this woman who kind of is new in town. Her husband is the new principal in the district, and she becomes friends with this mother group. And this mother group is in the process of planning this big Halloween shindig. And the mothers, though, are getting like threatening letters of like, you have until the Halloween party to tell people, or I'm going to tell people, like kind of situation. So it's like the past is coming back to haunt the mothers, and does it have something to do with the new mother? What's going on? I did really enjoy this one. I didn't enjoy it as much as her previous novel, but I definitely thought it was good. It was really well paced. I couldn't stop flipping through the pages. I just didn't like love it as much as I loved the other ones. I couldn't give it anything more than a 4-star. Like I said, it does have that Halloween energy vibe. It gives Big Little Lies kind of vibe, in the sense of like this mother group and this like hooty-faluty party that they're trying to throw it, and like, you know that something bad is going to happen at this party. So it definitely had like that type of vibe. So I gave it 4 stars. And then I read on audio Shuri. This is by Nick Stone. This is kind of it's not kind of, it's a Marvel story following Shuri, who is Black Panther's little sister. The flower that they take that gives you the Black Panther power is dying, and she wants to try to figure out how to save it, but no one's really listening to her. I thought this was a really cute little middle grade novel because it just showed her being super strong. And I think girls need to see strong female characters doing what they need to be doing. My only issue is I'm really bad with Marvel in general sometimes. Like, I'm really good at it. Like, I can kind of keep stories straight. But the minute you start interweaving, like, the comics into, like, the MCU, I get really confused of, like, what's canon and what's not. So, like, there is an appearance by a character that is not in the MCU, like, in the movies. Like, they're not connected, but they're connected in the book. So then I'm like, this has nothing to do with, like, the storyline we know. And I got in my head of being really confused. So that's my own fault. But I still enjoyed it. I still gave it 4 stars. And if you've got a middle grade reader who likes that, like, Marvel type of story, they're going to enjoy the story. I read The Paris Apartment, which I do have downstairs, by Lucy Foley. This book I was highly anticipating after really loving The Guest List. The Guest List was one of my favorite books in 2020, so I've been eagerly anticipating her releasing something else. This one is following a girl who goes and shows up at her brother's apartment in Paris, and he's not there. And so she needs to kind of figure out what happened to her brother. Where is he? It appears that there might have been more to it, so she starts to interrogate the neighbors, which is not a good idea because now she's unveiling things that people don't want unveiled. And they are going to do whatever it takes to kind of keep that secret a secret. I will say I did not love this one as much as I loved The Guest List. I think I would rank it The Guest List, this one, and then The Hunting Party. I did love the atmosphere in the beginning. It was definitely creepy and had you kind of on edge. The chapters are super short, which keeps you wanting to read. But by the middle, I started to kind of like teeter off. And I don't know if it's because I was reading this one physically. I've been a really, really bad physical reader lately. Literally, this one and the book I'm currently reading right now is the only 2 physical books that I picked up this entire month because I'm just really bad at it right now. It's just easier to read with one hand and to like flip through things and put the phone down or put the Kindle down than to put an entire book down. So I don't know if I started losing steam because of that. This one also gets really vulgar by the end in a way that like it didn't feel necessary. It didn't need to be as vulgar as it was. And I know that she's kind of been like that in a little bit in the previous books, but this one, it just kind of bothered me more than the other ones did. But she also delivers on those twists and turns in the end. So I still gave it 4 stars, but if you were to ask me, like, on the scale of 4, is it closer to a 3 or is it closer to a 5? I would say it's closer to a 3 in my opinion. Oh, I just realized I was talking about Shuri and I had it in front of me the entire time. That was sad. Okay. This was Shuri. I can't believe that was really dumb. Sorry. Then I also read Yes and I Love You by Ronnie Lauren. This was kindly sent to me from Jules. Pages and Puppers? Puppers and Pages. We will never know because I am so bad at that. So she gifted me this on a random act of kindness day, and this is following this woman, and she is very much an intricate person. She kind of like an introverted person. She likes to stay to herself. She has Tourette's in the form of tics in her like facial features. So like if she's talking to you, her nose might start twitching or her face will scrunch up. So she really hides behind this personality called Ms. Poppy, who kind of like reviews entertainment in like a blog type of format because she's a writer. And we're also following her love interest, Jasper, who kind of enters the picture, and He is an improv person, an improv actor, who kind of has just gotten out of a really bad relationship. He is the coffee maker now at her work, where like she works where like you could kind of like rent an office. And their paths are going to eventually cross. And then they kind of start this like fake dating relationship that kind of turns into a real dating relationship with a lot of its own problems. I did give this one 4 stars. Well, it wasn't really fake dating, actually. It was kind of dating of convenience. Like, he decides to offer her improv lessons because she finds out that she's going to have to, like, do video, and she's scared that if she does video, like, her nose and everything is, her tics and her Tourette's are going to impact that, and people aren't going to like her anymore. So they kind of almost trade, like, lessons for sex in a way. And it's really their relationship. I did give this one 4 stars. I've loved Ronnie Lauren in the past. This one just didn't quite do it for me. I don't know if it just felt really long, and I don't know. I wasn't as sold into their romance as I have been sold into her other romances. So it's still a really good, solid read, and I understand why people love it, but I just didn't love it like everybody else did. Then I read, it's not in front of me, Please Join Us, which is by Catherine Mackenzie. No, let's see. I have it right in front of me. Not right in front of me, but I can get it out. Oh, no, I was right. Catherine Mackenzie. This is a book that is coming out, I want to say, in August. This one is written by the same author who wrote 6 Weeks to Live, and we are following a woman, and she is kind of starting to kind of be down on her luck in the sense of she's a lawyer. Her points are starting to go down, which means that she's going to start making less money. She's supposed to be she lives in an apartment right now with her husband, and they're supposed to take it over when his aunt dies, but things are just not looking like that's going to possibly happen. She's in a situation that she's not liking. And one day she gets kind of this invitation to go to this like women's like kind of empowerment type of retreat. So she spends money to go to this retreat, and she ends up in this, hold on, let me see if I can grab him. All right, so she enters this women's retreat, and she ends up in this, like, lioness, like, type of group. They call themselves the Pride. And this Pride ends up being a little bit more sinister than she expected it to be. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Want to say hello? Want to say hello? So she ends up in this retreat, and it, like I said, it ends up becoming more sinister than she expected. We're kind of alternating between like her like leading up into the retreat to the present time, but we're also kind of getting like present chapters, like future chapters interwoven, and they eventually like will meet each other. Like I said, I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed this one. The ending did surprise me. I just wish that the pacing was a little bit faster. I don't know. I'm like really, like, not that I've been reading like slow books, but I've been like wanting something that's a little bit quicker paced. So I'm hoping in the second half of March I could find something that's just like unputdownable, because that's really what I'm looking for right now. But I gave it 4 stars. It's still really good. I highly recommend it, especially because it just really explores that like women power dynamic, and how women deserve to have more power, but like what do they, like, this is kind of almost like the wrong way to like go about getting it. So it was interesting. Then I also read Wahala by Nikki May. I was reading this as an audiobook. This is following 3 friends. They are Nigerian, but I believe that they're living in London, and they're really good friends. And one day this woman that like is kind of like an outsider joins their group, and it kind of starts to deteriorate a lot of their friendships and starts to bring up a lot of issues. I've heard this compared to kind of like Sex in the City, and I agree. Not that I've seen the shows, but like I've watched the movies and I understand like the friendship dynamic. So it kind of had like the glitz and the glamour, but it also had this mystery and intrigue of like this woman who was not part of their group. What are you crying about? What are you crying about? But I enjoyed it. I think something that I would like to do, because I read it as an audiobook. What? Because I read it as an audiobook, I would love to reread it and read it physically just to get a better connection to the characters, because I felt like I couldn't get as connected to them listening to them, if that makes sense. So I think it was a case of like, if I had read it physically, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. Still gave it 4 stars. But I definitely highly recommend you give it a go, because I feel like it brings up a lot of different conversations about like having kids and marriage and kind of like economic, I can never say this word whenever I say this word in videos, economic status. So it definitely explores a lot of different ideas and friendships and relationships, and so I highly recommend you check that one out too. I read Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell. This is another book that I had on Netgalley. See, I'm checking them off. This is an older one. This one came out last year. This is following a man, and he is a professor at a college, and 2 years prior, one of his students goes missing. But before she goes missing, she actually gave him her like thesis project, which was actually her writing a novel. And she's been missing. That she's pretty much presumed dead at this point. And so he decides, like, I need to make tenure. In order to make tenure, I need to publish something. So he ends up taking her transcript and he publishes it. And of course, the second it goes out live and gets published, who shows back up? And not only that, but it starts to get noticed that this transcript, like this manuscript, am I saying transcript? Manuscript is oddly familiar to an event that happened on campus about 2.5 years prior. So it's starting to look like he did something that he shouldn't have, because he knows too much. But really, does he know too much because it wasn't his manuscript in the first place? And he ends up in this completely spider-webby like web of craziness. And I gave this one 4 stars as well. Another thing about pacing, I actually almost DNF'd it in the very first few chapters. I was kind of confused. Like, his name is Connor, and it was like drilled into our heads that his name is Connor. His name is Connor. His name is Connor. And then I don't know where they started calling him Mr. Nye. And I was like, who the heck is Mr. Nye? And it just, so his writing style in the beginning was a bit choppy, and it still continues to be a little bit choppy throughout the book. But eventually it hit a point where I was like, oh, okay, I get what's happening. I know who these people are, and I could keep going. And I ended up ultimately enjoying it. I did kind of predict the ending. There was a kind of like a 2-part reveal, and I definitely knew one of the reveals, which I think was supposed to be like the sneakier one, but I predicted it and I figured that one out. So I enjoyed it. I think I would try his books again. It was an interesting time, so I gave that one 4 stars. And the book that I am currently reading, I only have 100 pages left, so once this guy goes back to sleep, I'm hoping that I could knock it out. No pun intended. I'm actually currently reading Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. I only have 100 pages left. This is the sequel to Finley Donovan is Killing It. In that book, we are following Finley and she's an author of these like suspense romance novels, and she's pitching her newest novel to her agent, and somebody overhears her and thinks that she's a hitman. So they like try to enlist her to kill their husband for money, and hijinks ensue. This is the sequel, and it picks up right after that one leaves off. So I'm not going to talk about what this one's about, but I am enjoying this one. This one just has just as much antics, and I'm really interested to see how it's going to end. I also started the audiobook for Peach Blossom Spring. This one I have through Book of the Month, and I also have it through Libro FM, so I will be finishing listening to that one. He's smiling. He's smiling. And that one is following generations of Japanese immigrant, because I think they're leaving Japan. Let me just double check. I'm not very far into it at all, so that's why I just don't want to get it wrong. Oh, no, it's a Chinese family that's looking for home. but they're in China when the Japanese are attacking. Sorry, that's why I got them mixed up. But so far I'm liking that one as well. I did DNF another book this month too. I DNF True Crime Story. This is supposed to be about a guy who is like re-looking into a woman who, a college student who like goes missing, and it's kind of like the transcript of them like interviewing people, and it just, the first 40 something pages just were really boring, and I felt like nothing we learned had anything to do with somebody missing, and I didn't want to deal with it, so I ended up DNFing it, and I actually returned it to the store because it was like still within return range, and I didn't want it. So yeah, that is the beginning of my March. Thank you for dealing with this craziness of a wrap up of doing it down here, having half things prepared, half not having things prepared, and having a baby appear. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.